Welcome to Return on Insights, the show where candid conversations with bold founders and leaders spark actionable insights for your business. I'm David Lindover.
And I'm Erin Abatangelo. Each week, we pull back the curtain with leaders who are scaling teams and shaping the future, sharing the insights that create impact far beyond the bottom line.
Discover how high-performing companies build enduring cultures, inspire teams to think bigger, and turn vision into action. If you see storytelling as your strategic advantage, you're in the right place. We're joined by Ryan Farmer, Director of Collections, Cash Management, and Credit at Vestis Uniforms and Workplace Solutions. With over 25 years of experience in finance and accounting and credit, Ryan has led large teams at Fortune 500 companies, driving innovation and operational excellence in credit, cash flow, and collections. He currently oversees credit and collection strategy at Vestis, which is a leading provider of uniform rentals and workplace supplies, serving more than 300,000 customer locations across North America. Ryan also serves on the National Board of Directors for the National Association of Credit Management, reflecting his commitment to advancing industry best practices and leadership in credit management. Ryan's expertise spans financial decision-making, risk management, and leveraging technology to optimize collections, making him the perfect guest to discuss the evolving landscape of collections, the rise of BPO partnerships, and the impact of digital transformation in credit management. Welcome, Ryan.
Thanks, David. Glad to be here.
So we're going to go over a series of questions, and we'll look for your insights and prognostications for the future. So your career spans over 25 years in credit and collections. What are some of the most significant changes you've seen in the collections and credit management landscape during that time? I know that's a long way back, but do your best.
So I look back 25 years, it's definitely been interesting. And, from a credit standpoint, just the availability of data compared to what we used to have, right? So, and again, using that strategically to have more data to make better decisions, to hopefully have a better client base. But again, also allows you to be a little bit better at taking on that risk, figuring out what risk you can take on in a business to try to help your sales team, So I think over time, from a credit standpoint, the other piece is there's so many other avenues for customers to get credit, to figure out where they have other exposure, where they may not be able to pay us, right? I mean, all the credit cards and different business loans and other things that are out there, and the debt levels banks and credit cards that allow people to get to at this point in time that did not happen 25 years ago, right? I mean, things were a little tighter, it seems. So it's always figuring out where that other debt is and what they have, what they don't, and how do you get yourself pushed in through there from a collection standpoint. And, collections over the last 25 years, it's, that customer-based technology, it's a lot easier for our customers to ignore us, right? Everybody has that darn, smartphone now, so they get a phone call and it can say Vestis or whatever company, and they can save it, and they'll know that it's Vestis AR. So they can be like, I'm not going to pick that up because I know they want money. To me, that's a big thing that does hinder it. It seems like that pickup rate continues to get less and less for us as we, continue to move forward. So, and then for me too, I think it's the type of collectors we have. To different generations, to me, it's a difficult job to do, and it's sometimes can be a lost art. We find even when we hire and bring collectors in from other organizations or other businesses, it's just the different type of training and understanding the right questions to ask, and understanding it's okay to tell somebody you owe us money. We gave you service, right? It's just the generations now where it's, I don't want to be mean. They had this excuse to where it's they might, but we need to work with them and understand it. When we're in business together, it's got to be mutually beneficial. All of us need to gain from it, and if we service you, our gain is the fact that we need to collect that revenue to bring that money in, so we can make payroll, we can have better training, we can bring in new and better tools. So for me, over the 25 years, it's just been a mix of that, and it's figuring out how to put all that in together and how to be strategically smart about how we move forward from a collection standpoint, and use the extra data, the new data sets we can have from a credit standpoint to hopefully put us in a position we don't have as many accounts that end up being at a risk issue.
Right. Wow. There's a lot of things going on and need to be unpacked in that answer, but I'm fascinated about your comments about the collections people themselves, and how that might relate to technology, which is one of the questions later in the podcast. Yep. So I'll leave it for now. Vestis has recently focused on optimizing working capital and cash flow. How do collections and credit management contribute to these broader financial strategies at your company?
Yeah, so I think in multiple ways. First of all, from a collection standpoint, It's how fast can we get the money in the door, right? We know there's multiple parts to working capital. You got the AR side, the AP side. So for us, it's how soon can we get to those customers? How soon can we find a problem that they might have that's keeping them from paying? That way we can get it solved and then make sure we can get that payment in the door. So what we try to do is we've come up with, and again, I'll get into more detail on some of the questions. We've kind of created a new internal process that allows us to do that better than we ever have. So again, getting that customer faster, bringing that cash in the door, but at the same time, from a credit side of it, it's making sure we're bringing the right customer mix, right? And by mix, I mean it's what is it? Is it food and beverage industry? Is it hospitals? Is it construction? Is it materials handling? Whatever those customer bases mix we are, because we understand each one pays a little bit different.
Right.
And we need to understand the customer we know are going to pay us quickly versus the ones we know that are going to pay us slower, because that's how that industry works. And how do we find that balance? Because we don't want all of our customers set in this area where we know no matter what, it's a 60 to 90 day pay based on process. So again, it's using the data we have, and we got a couple things set up we can talk about on that. But again, we're trying to do everything we can to help push the dollars in the door the fastest we can from the data service.
Very insightful answer. And I'm curious, and maybe you can take pause for a second and give us more insight on this process that you mentioned. I know that there's probably some confidential elements, of course.
Yep.
But at the highest level, what does it look like to get the process that gets the cash in the door faster? Is it technology enabled?
So yes, somewhat. We kind of developed something internally, looking at some outside things as well to try to make it a little bit better. So basically what we did is we created what we call credit hold compliancy process. We call it CHC in our world. What we did was we took our collectors and we tried to figure out who's good at what. You can't bring a collector in and expect them to be good at everything, right? Because everybody's skill set is different. So we have some people that can come in and we can set them on those customers that just went 31 plus days past due. And man, they can sit out there and hammer out 100 calls a day because they love getting on the phone. Hey, you just went past due. You need a statement, need an invoice, whatever that may be. They have that tone. They have that charisma for that. But they don't like telling somebody, you got to pay me or I'm going to put you on credit hold, right? They don't have that. So we created tiered collectors. Well, we have tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. Each one goes up to where tier 3 is the one that has that specific skill set to where they can troubleshoot any problems, and they have no problem looking at you and saying, you've talked to Ryan, you talked to David, now you're talking to me. You ignored my colleagues. So it's kind of an in-house collection system as well, to where you have that built-in escalation to before you'd actually, if you had to, send it to a collection agency. And what we did is we created an aging that has automation in it to where they use it, make calls, hit buttons, and it sends out letters automatically, and it moves to different stages. And based off that stage, a stage is tied to a tier. So what it's done, it allows our agents who have specific skill sets to work specific stages, knowing that that's where they're the best at, and that's where they're going to get the most money and they're the most effective. But with that, it also dropped our attrition by over 20%. We have people staying much longer now because we're not forcing them into things they're not ready for or they don't want to do.
Interesting. Makes sense. All right, let's move on. This is great. So in your experience, what are some of the most effective strategies or innovations that have improved collections performance? And you've talked somewhat about that tiered approach, whether through in-house teams or external partners. That's the twist here.
Yeah. So, from a strategic standpoint, the CHC process I talked about has been a huge upgrade for us, because again, it's built about how we go about that, because now certain customer bases, the inception date, as we call it, for that stage, it allows our managers to go out and really hone in on how long has this customer been in this stage, when's the last time we contacted them, and then figuring out what is that next step before we move it to the next stage. Because it's like we tell them, we want to do all the things. We want to make sure we do all the due diligence, one, for the customer's sake, if there is issues, two, for the business's sake, because it's that balance of getting our money, keeping a customer, but at the same time understanding when a customer is just not a business partner anymore. So that has been a big help with that. And I think just from a innovation or strategy part is really, we sat down with our training department and said, we have to look at this all different. We have to look at it all different. How do we train them and get them comfortable? How do we get them up to speed? And what do we need to do different than what we do, right? And some of it's simple stuff. We don't have to be, it's like I tell my teams, just making it complicated doesn't make it better. We want to simplify everything we can because it's easier to teach, easier to train, and it's easier to do and perform on the backside. So we kind of stepped back and said, well, why are we doing certain things? And what we've seen as a big thing is just a lot of the role playing. Sitting in front of them, getting them comfortable and and because it's real easy when it's someone to have that tough conversation. Like I can sit there in front of them, I'm not going to pay you because I don't want to. And you're going to keep servicing me, you're going to like it, right? And teaching them how to combat that. And it's so much better that way than trying to give scripts and then it gets robotish. So it's nothing complex. It's just kind of getting back to the day-to-day. The dial for dollars is what we tell them. The more calls we can make and the more people we can touch, but do it in a way where it's fair. Stick to the facts. No emotion. You're there. Yes, I understand your problem, and yeah, I can help you, or I understand that, but understand we did service you. And so, again, we tried to keep it a simple approach, and we try to teach them to keep emotion out of it.
Back to the basics.
Yeah, it's what works. Complicating things just makes it that much harder on everybody else.
Absolutely.
I don't need to look smarter. I just want to work. I want to work harder, or work smarter, not harder. So
exactly. All right. So now we're going to introduce technologies such as automation, analytics, or omni-channel communication. That's shaping collections and debt recovery for a lot of organizations. What about at Vestas?
Yeah. So, kind of hitting on automation first, obviously what we've done in-house, we've also trying to take advantage of dialers and having dialer time to where it gives everybody some time to have some of those easier calls where we can get to those accounts faster, where it just keeps pulling them up. We found that that's been a interesting process over the last couple of years, just enhancing that, figuring out when it makes sense, making different dialer campaigns. Those customers that just went 10 days past due, it's that friendly, hey, we love you. We want to make sure you got everything you need. We hadn't seen a payment yet, right? Just that type of quick reminder, even if it's leaving a message, it's a touch, right? Because we know, especially in our world, like I said, 300,000 plus customers, 200,000 plus of them are small mom and pop businesses, right? It's Ryan running it, doing all of it, and Ryan's doing the books on the weekend, right? We know there's a lot of people, that's how they operate, and they really do just get so bogged down. They just do forget, especially if we're one of their smaller bills. So sometimes they just need that nudge and that reminder. And then, from a portal standpoint, we created our own AR portal. That way now we can push people too and say, hey, you got this reminder, email or call. You don't have to send a check. You don't need to waste your time writing that check and the envelope and the stamp and everything that goes with it. Go to our portal. You can go out there and click the invoices you want to pay. You can even short pay them, and then it brings up, we build it into where it gives them like 7 options of why you're short paying. Quantity, L&R, didn't get that product, whatever it might be, pricing. That way they can still pay us and we still get a chunk of the money due to us, and they're not holding all of it, right? They can go in there and do some other things on their account to control wearers and product and things like that, trying to make it a one-stop shop to make it easy for them to do business with this. And then one of the other things real quick from an automation, working with an AI company right now on these AI calls that is just, it's crazy. They can make it sound like you're human. And we've given them scripts and calls and different things and been playing with it. And now they sound like me or you on the phone right now talking, and they're smart enough to know certain things. And if a certain question's asked, then it will throw it into a queue. We're not live with it, but it's something we're working with that is a way for these bots, as they call them, make 400 calls in a minute. Right. So how do we incorporate that early in the process so then it's less human touches on the backside when it actually would fall into the CHC process? So, and then with that, just strategically, it's been a training for our managers to understand how to look at it different. Not by days past due, to your point, cash flow, right? How do we drive cash flow? How do we drive working capital? It's collecting by the biggest dollar balance and then working your way down. Now, by doing that, you may not get to the small stuff that's out there a little bit, so that's why we have a Flip It Friday. Every Friday, then take your team and flip it and start from the bottom now and clean up all that little stuff, what needs to be written off, what's just one missing invoice you can call them, send them. So again, from a strategic standpoint, we want to keep it simple. We're not overcomplicating it. It's the big stuff. Go get it. Do what we need to do. But at the same time, we know we do this, and eventually we meet in the middle, and we know we've touched everything.
Interesting. Thank you. So what are some of the key challenges you face in maintaining compliance and delivering a positive customer experience? You've touched on that in some of the answers you've provided already within the collections and credit management spaces that you operate in. Yeah,
especially, from a collection perspective, it's those customers out there where maybe they are having service issues and they're already angry with us, right? It's trying to figure out how to calm them, let them know we're working with them and we can help them get that fixed, and then working with our partners in the field to work through some of that. So, and again, it's helping remind our collectors to keep their composure. They're not mad at you. So from a standpoint of staying compliant and being what they need you to be, it's, remember, they're going through something that's hurting their business potentially because we didn't do something right. It's having that understanding and letting them know that we can help make that right. And then just the perspective of all the legal stuff out there, right? The NOTCHA laws and making sure you're doing the mini Miranda on the calls. It's making sure we do all that stuff. Because again, when you have 100 plus collectors out here and you're making 9,000 calls, 10,000 calls in a given week, it's making sure we do all those things right as well. So again, it's just that training, simple attention to detail, and just continually doing those trainings with our team when we have our bi-weekly team meetings or when we do a weekly collections town hall, and we bring all of our people together and talk to them and then talk as a group. What are we hearing? What are we seeing? Because if one's doing it, there's probably a lot more seeing that. So we try to stay ahead of it as much as we can. But again, it's humans. Everybody is going to have a bad day, a rough day, and we just got to always let them know, hey, you're having a bad day. They probably are too. Let's just make sure we stay there together and do what we can for the customer. So, from a compliancy piece of it, that's really from a legal standpoint where we got to be careful and just really work with our people.
Another related question, and you've touched on it. How do you ensure alignment between your collections practices and your company's values, especially when you're working with different teams or potential partners?
Yeah, well, it's like we tell them, like, hey, without customers, we don't have a job, right? Without those customers, we don't have a paycheck. We want to treat them as business partners. And then, and we make sure our sales team and our service teams understand that we're here to work with these customers. We're here to do the right thing with them, but we also got to understand the customer has to be willing to work with us and do that as well. So when we're on the phone with the customer, we want them to know we're here to help them. If you have a problem, we want to help get it fixed, right? To your point of that integrity, right? Because if we don't get it fixed or they can't get it fixed, then why are they going to want to pay us? Why do they want to continue to do business with us, right? So we take a lot of pride in, if a customer tells us there's a problem, we're like, okay, let's stop right there. What is the problem? What is it? Give me the details and who have you talked to? And then we have an internal process where we create a service request that goes out to them and says, hey, we just talked to this customer and this is what they told us. And they've already told us to ask you 2 times to fix this. And they say they've not got a resolution yet. We need you to get out there in the next 48 hours. Can you get that done for us? So again, it's making sure the customer understands they come first, and then we're going to do everything we can understanding their problem.
What metrics or KPIs do you use to prioritize and measure success in your collections and your credit management? How do you use these to drive continuous improvement?
Yeah, so with some of the systems we use, obviously we track number of calls made per day, and then talk to that by a week. Everybody can have a good day, bad day. We look at it on a weekly basis. So each one of those tiers I talked about earlier has a different call volume. So we want to make sure there's activity. But the other thing we've also hit on them too is it's about resolution. You can go make 200 calls today, but if you don't collect $1 or you don't resolve a problem, then you didn't really get anything done. Someone might go complete 30 calls, maybe they collected $100,000, right? So we've really moved over the last year to dollars per head. That way they understand that's cash flow.
Yeah.
You're bringing money in as cash flow. So the more money you bring in your calls that day, you might have maybe you only made 30 calls, but you brought in $100,000. You might have made 200 calls and brought in $50. Where's this person not being effective on the phone? So then that also leads us to where do we need further training and how do we make that person better? Because we want them to succeed so they can create a career here and be ready for that next step if that's what they so choose as opportunities to bring themselves up. So we really hit from a KPI perspective that, and then the other thing is we record calls for quality to make sure that we're saying the right things, treating customers the right way. So we will also sit down on a monthly basis and listen to calls with our collectors. That way they can hear themselves, good, bad, and indifferent.
So when you were talking about kind of the KPIs and the cash per head, the recovery per head, or whatever you want to call it, are you considering that there's 15% of your bad debt that is unlikely to pay and 85% that is likely to pay, or you could flip those percentages, obviously. And are you using predictive analytics to help you do that?
So we are using some predictive analytics. We're not where we want to be yet. We're working a couple different things with a couple of our vendors to help us with that. So we do understand based off our customer base and historic data, to your point, especially if someone's in a region, we have certain market centers, regions that are restaurant heavy. That's just where they're at. That's where it is. We understand when you're there, restaurants are the highest failure rate. That is our biggest write-off area, right, on an annual basis. So we understand they may not collect as much per head because they're calling a much more difficult customer base versus someone who may be in the Midwest who has some of these large poultry farms or meat places, and it's big dollars they can call, and we know we're going to get paid because they have money, right? So yes, from that standpoint, we look at each person different. And from an analytical standpoint, we know where those dollars are going to come from and understand where the dollars aren't. So we are trying to create a more predictive piece to put onto our agents where it says, hey, we believe these are the customers that aren't going to pay, so we need to focus on them based off highest dollar value. So what we've done is we've created an algorithm. So we take 7-8 different data points, and we work with DMBI. We got a great relationship with them, to where we've taken data they have, we've provided them with some of our AR data, and we went in and played around for 6-8 months and created this algorithm that said, here's who we think will pay and who won't, and it ranks the customer on a scale of from poor down to excellent, right? So we have different pieces in there that gets on that aging as well. So again, when you talk strategically, we're also using that to say, hey, we know we want to go biggest dollar, but at the same time, this one is a big dollar, it says poor, this is a big dollar and it says excellent. We probably don't need to call them, right? To your point. So we hit that. So we are working with that, and every 6 months we're looking at trying to dial it in and make it even better. But yeah, so we're trying to use as much of that technology and data we can, and always looking to find ways to be better at it.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing those insights with our audience. What trends or developments do you anticipate will have the greatest impact on collections and credit management over the next few years?
I think from a trend standpoint, I think, again, it's what can we do with the data we got? There's so much out there. How do we continue to incorporate that into it to help make us, more strategic on making sure we're calling the right customers in the right order? We're calling them faster and getting the ones we need to. So that'll be interesting. And I think the other piece of it is just continue to be, from a financial, economic, from the the U.S., how we go, where do we go from here, right? Because we see a lot of businesses right now that are struggling. We got a lot of businesses that I believe are at a concerning debt level, and it's how do we manage that, and how do we figure out what that is, fit ourselves in there to where they're paying us as fast as they're paying other people, and we're not falling to the bottom. So I think we just have to continue to be open-minded, strategic, and open to new ideas of how we continue to get to a customer faster and get to a customer and show them our worth to them when we are reaching out, and how we can help them with whether it's service issues or whatever that might be. But again, I think it's just over the next couple of years where we go and how the small business environment plays out. Definitely have some concerns with that right now.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time, Ryan. It's been very insightful. I know our audience is going to capture a lot of information from this podcast, and I hope to work with you again soon. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you having me. I've had a lot of fun with it. Thank you.